Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to this next and final part of the jazz series. To finish out this series of jazz guitar lessons, we're going to be taking a look at rootless chord voicings. So we're going to be basically using last week's and the week before that the 4-note voicings that we've kind of been taking a look at. So adding a 4th note in to our shell voicings. We're going to be taking a look at how to drop the root note from those voicings so that we can, if we're playing with the bass player, playing in a full band situation, that we can, stay out of the bass player's way and not be stepping on his toes with a whole bunch of low root notes and stuff, because that can, really clash sometimes. And so yeah, dropping this root note out, you still get some really great voicings, but you stay out of the bass player's way, and everybody's happy. So the concept behind this is really easy. Sometimes, we just have to change the fingering around a little bit to make things a little bit more comfortable, but with just a little bit of practice, sometimes it's a little weird to visualize these as well without an actual root note in there. So, there's that aspect. But with a little bit of practice, these can lead to some really nice voicings. You can get some really great sounds. You can even kind of be playing lines around some of these smaller chord shapes because you'll have an extra finger free that was playing the root note before. So these voicings are just incredibly useful. Again, they sit really well in a band situation, and they just sound great, and they leave a lot of room for embellishments with them. So yeah, let's get started with the lesson and take a look at how to drop root notes out and get some really nice sounds. Alright guys, so we're just going to take a look at basically shape 1 from an E string root and shape 2 from an A string root. Okay, so we're not really going to do the shape 1 and 2 from like an A and D string root, because kind of the goal for right now is going to keep all these we're basically going to end up with 3-note shapes that we're going to comp with. Okay, we're going to try to keep these 3-note shapes on the D, the G, and the B strings. And I just really like them there because the timbre of the strings is very nice. It sits really well. It still, it definitely still works on the A, D, and G strings. Sometimes it can get just a little bit muddy, and definitely works on the G, B, and E strings. Again, sometimes that can be like a little bit high though. I just really love comping on the D, G, and B strings because, again, it just seems to fit really well. It sits really nice, and the timbre is really great as well. So let's just start off by taking a look at just a C major 7, okay? And we're going to add the 5th on top here. So these are going to be standard shell voicings, adding that 4th note in. So we're going to look at shape 1 first, E string root. Okay. So here's our shape. Now what we're going to do is just drop the root note. So we're not going to play the root note anymore with that. So we're just going to have these 3 strings on the D, the G, and the B. Now you can refinger that if you want. Maybe play it as middle, ring, and then pointer. Okay, now the idea is basically all the shapes that we had taken a look at, we can still apply them all just without that root note. So let's say we had like the C13, the C major 13. Okay, let's just take that shape. Now I'll do it a 2-string bar, 9th fret on the D and the G, middle finger on the 10th fret of the B. Okay, so again, it's just this basic shape. I'm just refingering it a little bit. Now I just end up with this really nice little shape that will work great with the bass player. And obviously right here, you can kind of tell that you need that bass note, like a bass player actually playing that low C, to really hear the quality of it. Okay? Okay, and this will still work like, let's say, how we've taken a look at that C6-9 chord. Okay, so middle 8 of the E, pointer doing a bar on 7 of the D and the G, and then ring on the 8 of the B. Okay, so here's a shape without the low root note in it. So then what's really cool is without the root note in, we can just move back and forth between these shapes and kind of comp maybe a little bit more like a piano player might. So, I'm just kind of sliding back into that shape down here, the 6-9 shape, going up to the major 13 again. So, lots of ideas there. We'd even even taking a look like at replacing the third with the second. So now 8 of the low E, 9 of the D, 7 of the G, and then 10 of the B. Now I'm just going to drop that low root note again, and we end up with this shape right here. Okay, again over that low root. Okay, so you obviously get a really nice sound with that. There's adding in the sharp 11. There's adding in the 9. So you can see how much mileage we can get out of that. We can really, it leaves us a lot more room kind of to experiment with, because obviously you have one free finger that we were using to play the root note. So you can start, you know, just seeing what kind of ideas you can come up with. So that's kind of with the major 7 chord, you know, just going through some different options and stuff, seeing what kind of sounds we can come up with. And then also, we can obviously take this from like a shape 2. So let's come down here to C major 7, just as a shell voicing. Now let's just add in the second to it, or the 9. Okay, let's drop the root, and we just end up with that. Okay, I'll refinger this a little bit. I'll go pointer, ring, middle, just so it's a little more comfortable to finger. Okay, there was just doing a little melody movement. You know, you're taking a look at the major 9, adding the 3rd on top, adding the 5th on top, adding the 13 on top. Well, we can still do that just without the low root note in. So here, just our basic shape. 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and adding the 13 on top. Okay, then back up to kind of based off the shape 1 voicings. Okay, so again, it's all kind of up to you guys, and you might notice even that, like, when I play this shape like this, I actually just am playing an E minor chord, and we'll have to talk more about that, like hopefully in a later lesson. But you'll just kind of notice that sometimes you'll end up with chords you might already know once we drop that low root note. Okay, here's adding again the 13 on top of the 6. Okay, again, if that bass player was playing the low root note, you could really hear the quality come out. So you can, you know, experiment with all those, just going again from shape 1 and shape 2. So now those are kind of some of the options that are available to us. Let's now move on to minor 7. Alright, so minor 7, we're basically going to be doing the exact same thing. We're just going to be taking all of our shapes basically that we already know, but just dropping that low root note out of there. So let's just start with like a D minor 7. Okay, I'm just going to add that 5th on top. So 10 of the low E, then the ring finger doing a 3-string bar on the D, G, and B strings at the 10th fret as well. Okay, now just drop that low root, so we just got these 3 notes. I'd probably refinger that with my pointer too. Okay, now let's go to our minor 11 shape. So just putting that pointer on the 8th fret of the B. Okay, now drop the root note out again. Okay, we'd also taken a look at adding that high 7th in. So then we could have a really nice little movement. Okay, adding the high 9th in there on the 12th fret of the high E. So you can see how nice that sounds. It really adds some really cool textures, again, because we have a free finger to kind of grab some of those other notes. Okay, so there's just a couple options. Adding the Dorian note in. Okay, at the 12th fret of the B. Okay, so all sorts of different options here that you can experiment around with. Adding the high root note in, 10th fret of the high E. There is the 9. high third. Okay, so lots of great options there to experiment around with. Now let's go down to shape 2. So we start at shape 1 here, now down to shape 2. Okay, let's add the root note on top at the 3rd fret of the B. Okay, so here would be a great shape that you could play. Again, with the root note in context. Here's our shape we'd be playing with the bass player. Now we can take that up to like our shape 1. Great sounds. Okay, so minor 9 now, over the root, with the 3rd in there. Okay, 6th fret of the B, with the high 4th in there, okay, or the 11th, 3rd fret of the high E, so we get this voicing right here, 3 of the D, 5 of the G, 3 of the high E. Without that bass note. So you can see, we get plenty of options there for sure to work around with, just going again kind of based off that shape 2 and that shape 1, and we can just kind of freely go around between those two shapes and experiment. So just kind of, going around between those two shapes and trying to come up with some cool ideas. And again, there won't be that root note in there, so we won't be, kind of stepping on the bass player's toes, so to speak. So let's now move on to dominant 7. All right, guys. So dominant 7. Let's take a look at this from G dominant 7 for now. Okay, is shape 1 at the 3rd fret, E string root. Okay, now let's just add the 5th into there. So we'll add the 5th on the 3rd fret of the B. We've kind of already taken a look at. Okay, now let's just drop that low root note out. Okay, now the reason I refingered these a lot of times is to offer myself kind of more room to embellish the chords, with other melody notes and stuff. So that's kind of the reason, because this fingering, if I just take this with the middle pinky ring, it kind of makes for a little bit of an awkward fingering, because I can't really grab anything up higher with the pointer or the pinky or something like that. So I'll refinger this usually doing a 3-string bar with the pointer on the D, G, and B on the 3rd fret, and then middle on the 4th fret of the G. Okay, again with the low root note in context. Okay, so what's really nice about this too is when I do that little bar with the pointer finger, just as kind of a random side note, but at any rate I'll just kind of show you guys this. I can take my middle finger off and then kind of hammer on the middle again and get that little minor to major 3rd movement, which is kind of nice. So just kind of a fun little movement to experiment around with. So that sounds really cool. Again, we're taking a look at the dominant 13 chord. We can do that same thing. Okay. Add a high root note in there if we wanted to. Okay. Add the 9th up there if we wanted to. Add a sharp 5 if we want to, or a flat 5 down here. Now I'm fingering it middle ring pointer, and that's 3 of the D, 4 of the G, 2 of the B. Okay, same fingering, but now just 3 of the B, and now I just have that standard dominant 7. Okay. So you can see plenty of options there to experiment around with. Let's go up to shape 2 now. So we're going to be at the 10th fret, 10 of the A, 9 of the D, and then 10 of the G. Standard shell voicing there. And let's finger this ring middle, pinky, and then add just that high root note in there. Okay, now here you'll notice we do have the root note in there, but it's high enough that it's not really a problem anymore, because this is, you know, this is high enough that it's not really going to be in the bass player's way at all. The main thing we're worried about is these low root notes, like on the, you know, the E and the A and the D strings. Okay, so just dropping that low root note out, get to this little voicing right here. Okay, so we can bring that pointer finger up 1 fret on the B, so now we're at fret number 9. We get a flat 9. Up to fret number 10 we get a regular 9 chord. Okay, so now I'm fingering this pointer, middle ring. Bring the ring up 1 more, we get a sharp 9. Kind of our Hendrix voicing again. Back to a regular 9. Okay, so lots of options there. Okay, now we can even bring this ring finger up to a high 5th in there if we wanted to, which would be on the 10th fret of the E. Make it a sharp 5 if we wanted to. Let's bring it up 1 more fret. Now I'm adding my pinky, or a flat 5. Have to change the fingering around a little bit. And again, I'm not going to take a ton of time to go over all these voicings because we've kind of covered them all before. I'm just kind of showing you what these would look like without a root note in there. Okay, now adding the 13. Okay, so that was just a couple little ideas that you could experiment around with, and I'd highly recommend just hanging out on 1 chord, just kind of doing like a 1 chord vamp for a while and going around and experimenting with this and seeing what kind of options and ideas that you can you know, come up with and stuff just for 1 chord, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself and just start like trying to use these ideas through like a full jazz standard or something like that and just, you know, try comping through straight away. You really want to spend time getting comfortable with these voicings, you know, and kind of being able to visualize them, because even though technically nothing's really changing besides just dropping the root, that can still change things around a lot when you're not actually able to visualize that root note in there and you're having to refinger these a little bit, and it just kind of changes things around a little bit. So make sure to spend time getting comfortable with each one of these. So yeah, let's just move on to just a couple really quick examples. Alright guys, so we'll take the ever classic 2-5-1. We'll just start D minor 7, shape 2, G7, shape 1, and then C major 7, shape 2. Okay, so pretty standard stuff. Now, let's take that D minor 7, drop the root, and we'll add a high root on top. Again, which won't be a problem, it'll be far enough out of the bass player's way. Okay, so let's say the tempo is kind of like, let's say the tempo is just kind of along those kind of lines. So what I'll do here is, just again for options, I will start with the standard voicing right here, then add my pinky onto the 5th fret of the B, then up to the 6th fret. So just to add a little melody movement in there. Down to just the standard G7 with the 5th on top. Okay, 3rd fret of the D, 4th fret of the G, 3rd fret of the B. And then I'll just kind of mess around with going to the 13, so just, and that's just 5 with the ring on the B. And I could even add that high 9th in there again with my pinky, since again I have an extra free finger, so this stuff is easier to do. Okay, so then we've got, and then I'll go to like a C major 9 chord, again without that root in there. Okay, so hopefully you guys are kind of seeing how many options we can actually come up with now. We can almost start like coming up with little lines over these chords that we have, like right here, you know, and then right here with the G dominant 7. You know, we can just start coming up with little lines over those chords just to kind of experiment around with. And sometimes, you know, you might come on ideas that maybe are a little too much or aren't super musical, but that's okay. It's just it's just part of the experimentation process, and it's just kind of part of just, you know, just learning. So don't be afraid to come up with, you know, unmusical ideas sometimes, as long as it's kind of, you know, just in the name of experimentation and just having fun and trying to come up with things that you think are usable and things that you could see yourself using a lot in your own playing. So now let's move on to starting with shape 1. So a D minor 7 up here, going to shape 2 is a G dominant 7, shape 1 is a C major 7. Okay, so we'll start with just this D minor 7 with the 5th on top, and we'll bring it down to the 4 or the 11. Kind of the same tempo. Okay, now we'll go to the G dominant 7, adding the root note on top. Again, we'll just drop the low root note. And we'll take it up to the 9. Okay, and then I added a high 5th in there with my ring finger, kind of as we had already taken a look at. Okay, and again, you can just, you know, embellish with it, almost like you're playing lines over the top of the chords you're playing once again. So back to D minor 7, 11, again, that idea that we had taken a look at right when we started off. So that's just kind of using that. We'll play it a little faster, and I'll add the 7th in here. Okay, so again, there I kind of added even like a flat 9 in there. Okay, so again there I kind of even added like a flat 9 there with the G dominant 7, okay? So again, just kind of playing the line idea where I'm almost playing lines over the chords that I'm playing. So hopefully this kind of gives you guys a little bit of an idea of how you can use some of these rootless voicings. You know, don't be discouraged if these take a while to actually get kind of under your fingers and get them worked into your playing. You know, again, just a little bit of a different ball game when you know, you're not having these root notes in the chords and you're not playing these shapes exactly as you're used to playing them, and you have to work out some different fingerings. But again, it's well worth it. These, you know, these are a little bit easier to master than some other voicings and stuff. So with some good time, you should be able to get these into your playing and really sit well with the, you know, if you're in a band situation, especially because these are 3-note voicings. They don't take up a ton of sonic space. So, you know, again, everyone's kind of happy, and it just sits well in a, you know, kind of in a band situation. So yeah, this kind of concludes the jazz series. I hope you guys have got a lot of useful, you know, ideas out of this series of lessons, and it's really kind of, you know, helped get you guys started with jazz playing. We'll probably continue these lessons a little later on, go a little more in depth with, you know, just with chords and scales and stuff like that and progressions. But for right now, yeah, there's plenty of material in these lessons to keep you guys busy for quite a while. So the next couple lessons that I'm going to kind of move on to, basically going to move on to a couple more gospel guitar lessons, because, you know, a lot of you guys are pretty excited about those lessons, so I want to kind of revisit some ideas with those and give you guys some more, you know, some more ideas and concepts to mess around with. And then I'm also going to be kind of starting, I think I'm going to mix these series of lessons up, like kind of do an every other series, you know, one week, the other week. I also want to do a series of lessons on money chords. And what I mean by that is just really nice voicings that we use kind of around, like, you know, kind of the 5th fret and below area, I guess, and just some new ideas like in some standard keys that you guys might know. So common substitutions for chords, like, you know, a C major chord, but really making it sound really cool, giving you guys some cool substitutions for it. And yeah, giving you guys a whole bunch of different ideas for chords that can just really kind of add a new palette of sounds. And then also I'll probably be throwing some more lick ideas and lick lessons into these weekly lessons. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this jazz guitar series. Again, we'll probably revisit it a little while from now. And if you guys have any suggestions, anything that you'd like to see, please let me know or drop me a comment or send me a message on YouTube. And yeah, I'd love to work something out with you guys. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this series of lessons, and I will see you guys back here next week. Thanks so much, everyone.